Hello there and welcome to this vlog of April 2022. The video this week is going to be slightly earlier than usual, so released on a Monday as opposed to a Friday. What I usually do is record videos early in the week and then schedule them for release on a Friday. But because I'm talking about some pretty interesting and exciting news that's happened in BattleTech about, 3 days ago now, I thought instead I'd just record today and put it up immediately. My schedule at the moment as well is all over the place because I'm doing quite a lot of travelling. So the episode that I was going to put out this week, I've kicked that into the long grass because it's more of like a law topic. So you'll probably see that next Friday or the Friday after. It depends on what my state of mind is when I am recording that, because I think I might be a little bit jet lagged and it's a bit of a complex one, but we'll see. Anyway, for today, I am going to talk about the new Kickstarter and just an absolute bunch of news that we got last Friday. And in typical fashion, obviously, I was away when all this happened. So I've just kind of been catching up with it a little bit this morning and really knew that I wanted to do a video on it, but important to say from the get-go that I'm not just going to go through everything and be like, oh, this is what's getting released and blah, 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 because lots of other YouTube channels have done that. If you want that kind of video, I'd recommend Sleepless Ronin. I think he did a really good video just a couple of hours after all this was announced, and he goes through each and every section and gives his thoughts on it. And I think he's actually a very good YouTuber because and I mean this in the most positive way, he's quite prickly and he's very opinionated on BattleTech, and I really like that. It's so much more interesting than watching someone who's a little bit bland. So he gives in really good opinions usually. He's he knows his subject, so he's worth checking out. What I'll probably do is I'll put his his link in the description below, so you can see that, and subscribe to him as well, because he's generally good. He does really good technical readouts. He'll go through that entire book and talk about what mechs are good, what mechs are bad, and he's quite entertaining when he does that. Anyway, for today's video, my format on this is going to be slightly different, because I'm going to do this as a bit of an opinion piece, but only on 3 of the things that have been announced. For the simple reason that I really am not qualified to talk about certain news things that were announced last week. For instance, they're going to be releasing a technical manual for the Dark Age. I could tell you what I know about the Dark Age on the back of a stamp. Right? I know nothing about it really. I know snippets, tiny little snippets, but I have no intention of getting into it. I don't want to play in that era. So if you're into that stuff, then great. All power to you, but I just am not qualified to have an opinion. I really don't feel like I can have an opinion on any of the new publications that are coming out either in the 3150 era, because I don't follow it. I might do eventually. I'm not being dismissive of that era at all, because obviously Catalyst are now trying to build something new for BattleTech. But I think everything between the Word of Blake and the Word of Blake Jihad, whatever you want to call it, and through to the Dark Age, everything I've read has been pretty terrible, and I'm not interested. So hopefully, I hope one day that I do go to the Il Khan era and be like, oh yeah, this is really good actually, and I'm going to read up on that and get into it. But for now, no. I've got too much going on with just trying to get my head around everything that I want to get my head around within the Succession Wars through to the FedCom Civil War. So that's where my headspace is currently. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to just talk about limited things in this video, things that I feel comfortable talking about. I'm also going to talk about some negative things as well, and I'm going to do that quite quickly because I want to do that at the beginning of the video, not at the end, because I want to leave a bitter taste in people's mouths. And as well, before I do talk about any perceived negatives, really important to say that generally speaking, this is incredible. Right, what they've done is amazing. I'm really, really enthusiastic and optimistic about it. But there are just a couple of things in there that are going to be slightly annoying to certain people within the BattleTech community. I say it's only one thing. The other thing that I'm going to make a little bit of a complaint about is completely subjective. So there you go. And I'm going to do them now because I think it's like I said. I always like to do that. Bad news first, good news second, because leave on a positive note if possible. So the first thing that I'm going to have a slight moan about is the marketing on how they've done this. And important to know, I am not a marketing person. I've got no qualifications in marketing. I work in communications, pretty high-end technical communications for law firms, but usually in most major corporates, they have marcoms, so marketing communications. And I've worked with hundreds of marketers over the last decade, and some really, really talented people as well. And just via osmosis, I've learned things about, how to do a strategical campaign, how to do thought leadership piece. I already kind of knew how to run events because I used to do a lot of that when I was in my 20s for a sector that I worked in. But I kind of got a full kind of spectrum on how you deliver a full business strategy and plan. And I unfortunately have to say that I don't think Catalyst are very good at it. Now, I'm going to talk through this. Maybe someone from Catalyst will see this one day and be deeply offended. I kind of hope that is the case because that's the only way I think they can really step up their game on stuff like this. And I'm going to tell you why it frustrates me and why I think how it's quite easy to solve. But why it frustrates me is because BattleTech at the moment is hot as a game. As a tabletop game, I'm seeing my local stores in Britain, so not local to me in a geography sense, but smaller gaming stores who are maybe 60 miles away from me, who I use because they've got good service and they're stocking BattleTech. And what I'll see is they might get 15 a game of Armoured Combats come in, and within 10 days they've got 2 left. That to me is a hot game. This isn't a cheap game. A game of Armoured Combat is £50. So it's it's not as expensive as Games Workshop stuff, but it's still, it's something that you're not just going to buy if you think you're never going to touch it. It's going to sit on a shelf somewhere. It's probably something you want to kind of look into and have had some kind of exposure to in the past. And I've spoken to a couple of the owners of the hobby stores just out of interest to say, how is BattleTech going? Would you like to get more? And pretty much exclusive, they've all said, yeah, we shipped thousands of it. Thousands of pounds worth of it. The deliveries come in, we get it all on the website, and it's bang out of the door. I think obviously some things are more popular than others. For instance, I've noted that the clan stuff isn't as popular as the Inner Sphere stuff, but I think that's inevitable because the Inner Sphere stuff just looks so much better. I have the clan stuff, but you just notice that they've always got 5 or 6 of a clan reinforcement pack in stock, but then they've got none of the Inner Sphere stuff. So the Inner Sphere stuff moves quicker. So because of that, because there is a buzz around it, and the community is obviously quite in a good place at the moment. We've had a lot of great releases, a lot of computer games out. They're starting to really close the door, I think, on what was perceived as quite a toxic era of BattleTech, which was very divisive for the community. And they've now kind of opened a chapter on the Ilkhan era, so they can build their own thing now going forward. So we're in a good place. And what I think needs to represent that is how they go to market with the news that they're going to be doing this new Kickstarter, which isn't for chump change. Keep in mind the last Kickstarter that they did, the figure is up actually on the Kickstarter page. It's they got over $2.5 million. Now, obviously, depending on what industry you work in. I've worked in industries where $2.5 billion is chump change. But that's at you might do a private equity deal and it might be, 600 million or something like that, and you're working on the comms for that. So it's a big old deal. It's worth a lot of money. Where Catalyst sit in this though, and obviously they're a subsidiary of Tops. They own the IP, and Catalyst are licensing the BattleTech IP at the moment. Catalyst Games are an SME. They're a small, medium enterprise, so I don't expect them to be running masterful campaigns because they've got hundreds of marketing staff working for them and everything else. But I would have expected some basic like understanding of how to do a campaign and really push that. And unfortunately, I mean, you can see it from the screen here. Let's have a quick look at this. So this is the BattleTech, or BattleTech.com. Obviously, the Catalyst logo's up in the right there, so very much affiliated with our social media channels as well. And I don't mean any disrespect to this. I mean, they've got like a book here, Redemption Rights, Land of Dreams, Founding of the Clans Trilogy, Volume 3. So great, there's books coming out, etc. Okay, I'm going down this now. I'm like, where is there a Kickstarter? Like at this point now, I'm confused, and I was confused when I was looking at it. I thought someone said there was a Kickstarter. Surely that would be like the big banner piece of what you are doing. Well, how far do we have to? Well, here we are. Here's one massive point of news, which is Alpha Strike, which we'll get onto shortly. We've then got the box sets. Here, I'm seeing these and I'm like, oh my god, they're bringing new box sets out, wonderful. And then right at the bottom, we have got, probably in this tiny little piece here, with a pretty nondescript like picture of it with a Banshee and Mercenaries underneath. BattleTech Mercenaries Kickstarter, Fall 2022. No fanfare. No trumpets, no little video packages. I just think that's a very, very bizarre decision. I think there is so much buzz around BattleTech at the moment. And I work in comms, right? So I work with a lot of press people. There are press people out there who just cover hobby. Whether it's like independent media channels or like magazines, things of that nature. When I Googled this, right, I couldn't actually find this link. I had to go back into Twitter, find the Catalyst page, and then go back to the link. Because this isn't a website I routinely use. So it's not on the Catalyst website. And probably one of the biggest news releases that we've had for BattleTech since the last Wave 2, which was some time ago now, they've just lost it in the copy within like a general news release for publications and the box sets that they're putting out. And I just think it's a really bizarre decision, and I can't for the life of me think why they have done that if they want to generate buzz. More concerning though, they've not actually updated this on the Kickstarter page, which is the place where they generated that $2.5 million not so long ago. Still completely, I mean, I don't think they've put any new updates on there since like late last year. And I just don't understand it. Like I'm very much like in a perplexed stupor, looking at this as what I'd consider like what should be a very, very prominent, pushy marketing campaign. So that's my subjective opinion. I know that like people in BattleTech are usually quite grounded and would regale against any notion that they should be pushing it as a commercial enterprise, but they absolutely should be, because the more money and prestige and fan base that BattleTech gets, the more things we will get, the more people you can play the game with, the more chance there is of it succeeding and not going through the horrifying period after with the kind of creation of the Word of Blake Jihad, where everything kind of fell off a cliff. They started getting writers in who didn't really understand what they were doing. Like new writers at that time, and it just was a disaster and it nearly died. And I think a lot of that was because of really bad decision making, but I'm sure that a lot of it as well was because they didn't market the product correctly. Like they allowed people to slip through their fingers. And I think with something like this, I really did want to see some trumpets sounded, because I feel very excited about this. When I read it and I knew what we were getting, I was like, that's amazing. But it's not obvious, in terms of the modern people how they kind of perceive marketing, which is it has to be very, very quick and grab their attention like that. Otherwise they're going to miss it. This is poor. There's no other way to say it. It ain't good. So food for thought there. Again, I'm a tiny little YouTube channel, so the chances of people from Catalyst seeing this are, minimal. But if they ever do, I would just say to them, please, put some like build to it. So like 3 or 4 weeks ago, they could have like, and they may have done this on some of the channels and I've missed it, but that in itself is problematic. I mean, I follow them on Twitter, right? I speak to people about BattleTech, and this was all released, I think, on Friday last week. So I would have liked to see like maybe like a little buzz trailer, like end like a 30-second thing with like Wave 3 announced at the end of it. April, whenever it was, 22nd was it, somewhere around there. And get that buzz going early. Get it like really kind of in people's minds that this is going to be a thing. So that's my first criticism of it, and again, that's completely subjective and just slightly disappointing for me because maybe personally as well, because I wanted it to be very like bombastic and interesting, and instead it's just this little like couple of paragraphs lost in a couple of dozen paragraphs about new news. So a bit of an odd decision. The second point, which is far more important really, and something that has a real world impact, and I'm just going to go into my Twitter feed here, and I've just like bumped this up to a pretty like high magnified level so you can see it, just because I've got the copy here on what the exclusivity deal is. Now, exclusivity deals for me are actually a good idea because it's a really good generator of revenue. Because for Barnes & Noble or for certain other retailers to have exclusivity on these packages, that's actually they're going to have to pay a lot more money to Catalyst than they usually would just for, like whatever cut they are, or whatever their agreement is in terms of who gets what percentage or whatever. So I've got no problem with exclusivity agreements. The problem is though, and I'm going to go through each of these in turn, and I'll talk about these box sets properly, in terms of what the content is in a while, but for now we're just going to deal with the exclusivity content. So the first two, Hansen's Rough Riders and the Northwind Highlanders. Now this is a bit opaque. I don't really know what this is going to entail, but they're exclusive to certain retail outlets. Now they're both different. I can't remember the names of the retail umbrella organisations that they were attached to, but I presume what that means is there's kind of like a loose like coalition of like independent hobbyists who are under some kind of agreement with like I say, an umbrella company, and then that group will get, like in this case, Hansen's Rough Riders, and then there's another group that will get the Northwind Highlanders. Okay, that's fine. I don't have any more detail on that though. As an international audience member in the UK, do these umbrella organisations have stores in the UK? Can I get it in the UK? I don't know yet. So there might be a problem with that, but not sure. The second issue there, which is the Kellhounds, which is going to be exclusive to the Catalyst Games Labs web store. Now, that means we can definitely get it in the international market. However, really important to know at the moment that the average shipping cost from the US from Catalyst Games at the moment, or it certainly was a week ago when I checked, because I wanted to buy something but didn't because of this, the shipping was $120. Now, I'm stupid, very, very, very stupid when it comes to money, and will throw it at things because I'm stupid and compulsive. I'm not paying $120 for what is going to be a package about this big. The reason it costs a lot from Catalyst, and I have no problem with them doing this, is that they go through UPS, and they go through like a tracked air freight service, and it's a wonderful service. You usually get it within 7 days, and that's great, but the price is significantly higher using that than it would be just sending it in traditional shipping. So I really think Catalyst, if they're going to do exclusive agreements on their web store for the international audiences, and I think they've kind of done this for the Australians. The Australians, which the shipping cost there was so stupid that they were making like a sub-store for them where they could buy things and then, get it at a, I don't know if it's a discounted level or whether they're not paying as much for shipping. I'm not sure because I don't live in Australia. But for me, like, the same thing needs to happen with Europe if the shipping costs are getting in excess of $100, because they're going to lose out on a lot of revenue that way. I mean, even in me being a complete BattleTech fanboy and having pretty good levels of disposable income, I would be seriously upset having to pay $120 for a little box being shipped. Like, it would just annoy me. The third one here, though, this is the problem one, and this is on the Eridani Lighthorse and the Grey Death Legion. These are both exclusive to Barnes & Noble. Now, as soon as we see this in Western Europe, our heart sinks, because Barnes & Noble do not do any shipping to, or certainly to the UK. I think they do it to some like Central Eastern European countries, but they don't do it to most of Western Europe. I think you were able to get them in Australia as well. So when, for instance, they brought out the Wolf's Dragoons pack, I bought that off a chap in the US who'd gone into a Barnes & Noble store, bought them, and then was selling them to the international audience. And kudos to him, he wasn't selling it for a ridiculous profit. You know, he wasn't just scalping, he was selling them for reasonable amounts. So if we get a guy like that again, awesome. But I always think it's a little bit tenuous that we are reliant on like a good-willed person within the community to do that. I mean, and you know, I think he was probably making about $10-15 on each one, and I'm more than happy with that. You know, he's doing the hard work. He's going into Barnes & Noble, buying them, going to the post office, shipping and whatever else he's doing. So I'll quite happily pay him a finder's fee. And I think I got the Wolf's Dragoon box set for about the equivalent of like $60-70, something like that, which is about double what you'd pay usually in the US. So I can kind of live with that to some extent. But what I can't deal with is if there are just scalpers selling them and then charging through the nose for shipping as well. So like you could only get, for instance, the Eridani Lighthorse for $120. That would just annoy me. You know, it's 4 mechs for $120. That's obscene. So, you know, it depends on the situation, obviously. But I just don't like it that Catalyst have not got a proviso for this. They didn't with the Wolf's Dragoons. I know that they will come back and say something like, well, all the exclusivity deals are all time sensitive, so they might only exist for 18 months and then we can sell them in game stores. That still means that we're in the international section, we're still waiting upwards of a year of getting the box set, unless you go through other means, like I've done with the Wolf's Dragoons box set. So that is one mitigating factor. There's also another mitigating factor, and this is going to tie in with the Kickstarter. And that's the Kickstarter, I'm slightly confused on how they're going to do this, but I'll talk through it. I mean, let's go back into the main page here. So we're told fall 2022 is when the Kickstarter is going to be a thing, which makes sense because that's when they did the Wave 2 re-sign up section. So you could they had like a late backer section that was in fall of 2020. So fall again, great. That probably means to me that we'll be getting the Kickstarters delivered in about 12 months. That's when I think I signed up to that late Kickstarter in October 2020, and I think I got my produce in September 2021. So it was about 11 months. I think we'll probably be looking at that again. I think Catalyst will probably come out and say it will probably be spring, 2023. I'd be amazed what with the state of global shipping and the world at the moment if we get it. Even if I think getting it in 12 months will be a massive success. So sign up for it, but don't have much expectation that it's going to come through to you very quickly. This is where I'm slightly confused then. If we kind of segue into the box sets here. So we'll just have a look at the Eridani Lighthorse one. This as well is out in fall 2022. So I'm presuming what they're going to be doing is these will be available in their exclusive sets. In Eridani Lighthorse, that's going to be at Barnes & Noble. But then it's going to be part of the Kickstarter as well. Now, that's a mitigating factor from the problem I was talking about with exclusivity, because if you're in the international section, which I am, in the UK, we're outside of the US jurisdiction, I'll be able to buy the Eridani Lighthorse on the Kickstarter, presumably, and I'll be able to get a decent level of shipping. Like, it might only cost £30 for shipping or something like that. And if I want to create an Eridani Lighthorse battalion or a company or whatever, I can just go and buy like multiple of these on there. So that does mitigate the cost slightly. However, it's just slightly annoying because when we have to wait a year as opposed to maybe 2 weeks to get them. So it's slightly problematic. However, I think given how much BattleTech I bought recently and how much I've painted, I'm quite happy to have like a year break from it now. I feel like I've got everything that I want within the confines of how I play it. This will be the next project for me, so at that point I will add in, like, maybe I will decide to build a notable mercenary battalion, as opposed to the Dust Counters, which I do because that's my mercenary unit. I might do it for, I might do it for like the Kellhounds, for instance. Who knows? Possible. So they're my two kind of gripes, and that does segue me very nicely actually into the nicer part now, which is these box sets, which look amazing. So we're on the Eridani Lighthouse already, so we'll just have a little chat about this. Now we get in this, I'll talk about all the already available mechs that we get. So it's going to be a Repose Banshee, a new variant of the Cyclops, and a Jumping Thunderbolt. You can just see the Thunderbolt there. It's the second one along. It's got the big stream of like jet engine fuel and smoke coming out of the back of it. I think that the jet, the mechs in mid-jump is going to be quite controversial. I think a lot of people aren't going to like that. Personally, I do like that. I think it adds a lot of variance to your forces. So if you have like, let's say for instance, if you had 2 or 3 Banshees in a company, if you had the old, let's say it's not old, but if you had the original sculpt and then you get the new sculpt here, and then you've got maybe a couple of Thunderbolts as well, and you've got the Thunderbolt from a game of Armored Combat, and then you've got the jumping Thunderbolt, that gives you some variety to your force. I quite like that. I did read somewhere, someone on Twitter made a comment and said that they were looking at just having box sets where they were just all on the ground in case you didn't like the jump variants. That's a really good idea, because then at least you give the people the option if they don't want to do it. I think I personally would, though. I think I'd be, or at least like, if, let's say I decided I wanted to create the Eridani Lighthouse and a company, I would get one of each, right? So I'd have the Thunderbolt on the ground and the Thunderbolt in the air. So that's good. Now, important to say, with all these box sets, there's actually one new mech in each one. So you get reposes in different variants, which is great, but you also get a new one. And in this, it's the Sagittaire, so it's the one in the bottom left here. Big old mech, great mech. So really interested to see that one. I love those bigger mechs as well, the big, like alien-looking mechs. It looks a bit like a Night Star, or like the King Crab or something like that. It's got like a similar kind of head, so I'm actually quite excited for that one. Next up, we got the Hansen's Rough Riders Battle Lance. In this, we have a reposed Atlas, new variants of the Enforcer, and a jumping Hatchet Man. In terms of the new mech we are getting here, it is the Penetrator. So you see that there on the very right hand side. Penetrator's a cool looking mech as well. I think out of all the box sets, this is the one that I'm a bit meh about. It's great. I mean, they're all great. I just like. It's a bit too Steiner for me. Even though I do play Fedcom and I am Fed Sons, it's very Fed Sunny as well. Like the Enforcer and the Atlas and things like that. And I kind of veer towards more like the eclectic mechs. That's quite a standard like Lance pack. Great. I mean, it's not a criticism. It's just for me personally, I'd be like, I can take or leave that one. I really would like the Eridani Lighthouse pack though. Next up, we've got the one that I adore, and that's the Northwind Highlanders. And just the box alone will mean that I buy lots of them because it's got tartan on it. I used to live in Scotland, and my family are a little bit Scots-Irish, so I have a real affinity with that. It's probably why I gravitate towards BattleTech, because BattleTech is super Scottish. I mean, House Cameron, right? The Highlander, the mech, is one of my favourite mechs, so I gravitate to that. In terms of this pack, and there's an error actually in the image here, but we are getting a reposed jumping Highlander, although the Highlander on here is on the ground, so we can't see that one. And new variants of the Grasshopper and Warhammer, so that's interesting. And the new mech, which isn't shown here, they've put an Atlas in as the placeholder for either a mistake or whatever reason. That's the Gunslinger, and I love the Gunslinger. It's a really, really good mech. So the fact there's a Gunslinger, a Highlander, a Grasshopper, and I mean, I love all those mechs. The Warhammer, I'm a little bit like, it's not one of my favourite mechs, is the Warhammer, but I really like it. It's like the everyman mech, right, in BattleTech. Grasshoppers I adore. Highlanders I absolutely adore. And the Gunslinger, I can't wait to see that. So sign me up for many, many of the Northwind Highlander packs, please. Next up, we've got the Kellhounds Strike Lance. So as the name would imply with the Strike Lance, this is a lighter lance, or well, a medium lance really. And we have got here a reposed Wolfhound. So That's interesting. So not a new variant, just a reposed one. New variants of the Griffin and a jumping Crusader, which is very interesting because the Crusader, the normal variants, or the standard variants don't jump. So it must be quite an eclectic variant of the Crusader. And we have then got a Night Sky. And I really like the Night Sky. It's a really, really nice little mech. I think, is it 50 ton, the Night Sky? I want to say. I don't own any. But interested to see that because it's a mech that, like, I don't know what, I think it must have been one of the games that I used to play when I was younger. It might have been like in a Mech Warrior or something like that. But I always used to, when they brought all the new mechs out, it's one of the mechs that I was looking for and it wasn't there. So I'm really glad to see it here. In terms of the final box set, which is at the bottom here, this is the Grey Death Legion Force Pack. And this, important to note, this one's out spring 2023, so it's going to be later than the rest. I think the rest are all fall 2022. Yeah, they are. Yep. So this one's going to be out next year, about probably this time next year. And this is a really interesting pack. I think out of everything they've done, this is the most interesting. So it has a reposed and jumping Shadowhawk, and new variants of the Gargoyle and Catapult. Now, the Catapult is an abomination. I despise that variant of the Catapult. It's the Karita K2. But I'm really glad that they're actually running it, because what I see, and it really upsets me, is people will buy the old, the standard Catapult with the missile boxes. They'll chop off the missile boxes and stick two PPCs to the side of it, and it's heresy. You know, I mean, don't touch Venerable Catapult. He's not there to be resculpted. He's beautiful as he is. Obviously, I'm joking, but like, I just like it that they're making this one, because people do like the K2. It's quite popular, so God knows why it looks like a complete derpy mech, and it's rubbish. Runs too hot. But there it is. It's there if you want it. This is a mixed box set as well with clan tech, because the Gargoyle is a clan mech. Yes, the Gargoyle's a clan mech, right? I'm going to check that on Flex before I go forward. I'm so sure it is. I don't know why. I've just had a moment of doubt there. Gargoyle. It is definitely a clan mech. Yeah, it's a clan mech. You get it in the. It's kind of in one of the early starter sets. I always remember it's a mech I don't particularly like. But yeah, that's interesting anyway. And that happens obviously in mercenary groups. That's completely going to happen, right? Like, they've got their own variants of mech. I mean, whatever era you're in, it's obviously after the clan invasion, so that's important that they kind of reflect that. The really interesting thing here, though, is that there is the Regent in there. Now, this is a mech I'd never heard of before I saw this, and I think it's not even on Flex. That's where the first place I always go, is just to kind of see what the data is on it. Was nothing on it. It's a really, really late era mech. I think it's one of the few mechs. I say few. There might be loads of them, but I presume there aren't that many mechs that were created in like 3150, and it's around that time period, I believe. It's a few days ago that I looked into that, so I might be talking complete rubbish, but I just remember seeing it and being like, that is super interesting, because that means that in the future they've got a mind to actually do the mechs of their era that they're now involved with, which is the Ilkhan era. So I'm really interested to see where they go with that, and that might be the thing that ropes me into new BattleTech. I'm going to give all the Word of Blake stuff and the Dark Age a pass. I'm not interested. The mechs are all ugly in it as well. It was our dark. They called it the Dark Age. It was the Dark Age of BattleTech. But if they go in the right direction with Ilkhan, one day, maybe when I'm an old man, I might be playing the Regent. Who knows? So that's just interesting, and I'm glad that they're doing that, because it shows at least there's going to be some kind of bridgeway between like what they're doing now in terms of, doing like Succession Wars, Clan Invasion, and as we'll talk about in a second with Alpha Strike. And there's still they're leaving it open to saying to the community, look, we are going to build new mechs and new variants of mechs, and we're going to keep putting out these force packs. So that's great. One final thing, and I absolutely love this, is I adore the boxes. They're what I've talked about for so long in branding, or sub-branding within your brand. And I'm just delighted that, like this example here on the Grey Death Legion box, it's got their logo in the bottom left-hand corner there. There's some artwork behind, so that I think that artwork behind might be of the gargoyle. So when you open it all up, it will just look like a really nice like picture that one of their artists has done. It's in their company colours. The one that I am fawning over absolutely is the Northwind Highlanders box because of that lovely tartan. So I am all over this, and I'm delighted they're doing it. And I just hope, again, if anyone from Catalyst see this, do the same thing for the Inner Sphere powers and the clan powers. Do the Capellan box set, like a starter box set where you get a catapult, a raven, a catathrac, potentially, you could even put a Highlander in there. That's kind of got an association with the Capellans in the early area of the Succession War. Do that, republish the the old Great House books. Have that as a starter set where you get the book and how to build a force, and you get some starter mechs for that force that fit into that within the lore. Put it in nice, if you're talking about Capellans here, you do it in a nice green box, and you put your favourite space communist marketing on the side of it. Just really kind of engage people on that level, as opposed to what they've done previously. And I've got no problem with how they've done it, because it was all kind of just testing the water stuff on the Kickstarters. But when you're just putting it in like a grey box and saying, oh, well, here are 4 random heavy mechs, and we're going to call it the heavy mech section. Well, if you're a Draconis Combine player, and you love them and that's all you want to play, you're not necessarily going to want to play with Fedcom. I mean, you could write it into the lore and say, well, okay, they've got this Enforcer and this Blackjack from Salvage, and they do have access to those mechs as well. I'm not saying that, but if you want a proper Karita lance, it's going to be dragons and Jenners and Panthers and Thugs. Oh my! So I think they need to get into that branding mindset. They're doing it here. Keep going. Do it for your great houses. Do it for the clans. Have like the clan Smoke Jaguar pack where you get the like the Cauldron Born and the Warhawk, like all those mechs associated with evil clan Jaguar. And the final thing, second to last thing, because there is one little other tiny thing that I want to discuss, is where is it? I think it was on this tab, so we'll just go up here, and that's the Alpha Strike box set. Now, I'm delighted by this. I think it's a fantastic move. I will preface this by saying I really don't like Alpha Strike. I use my own I think if I were going to term how I play BattleTech, I'd say it's maybe like 70% classic, 20% Alpha Strike, and 10% homebrew. So I put some elements of Alpha Strike in there to speed it up, but I really don't like how quick Alpha Strike is. I've spoken about this before. It just doesn't suit my needs when it comes to tabletop gaming. But it's a really, really important game to have available to people who want to play big battles or are a little bit more casual and maybe want a quicker game. I think it suits those demographics wonderfully. So I'm all in favour of this. Let's just have a look at what you get here, because it's super good news actually. You get 13 high quality, fully assembled miniatures, including 2 new redesigned miniatures, the Wraith and Pouncer, and 7 all new variants in new poses. There's not that much data there, and it all seems to be you could read a lot into that. I won't go through it all. I mean, the only thing to note there is the Wraith and the Pouncer. I think everyone's going to be delighted about the Wraith. It's a very popular mech. Pouncer maybe not so much, but Wraith definitely. I'd be really interested to see what mechs they put out with this. 13's a really interesting number. I'm intrigued. Is that going to mean it's 5 from a clan star and 8 from 2 Inner Sphere lances, and then there's going to be some some new variants of those mechs to kind of put them in maybe to the Fedcom Civil War era, so they've got all the new tech on them. Who knows? In terms of all the other stuff here, it's pretty standard to what we'd expect. It's very similar to what we got in A Game of Armored Combat and Clan Invasion. 32-page rulebook, 24-page fiction novella. Both of those kind of things came with the other 2 box sets. The Universal Primer, that's really good actually. That really is a good introductory document. I've got a few of those from all the box sets that I bought in the past. 13 Alpha Strike cards, obviously to reflect 30 models. 13 pilot cards, that's standard. 25 battlefield support cards. That I really like. I actually have the support cards, so that I could presumably add to my collection of that. I think that's for extra artillery and plane strikes and bombing raids and things like that. 1 heavy stock reference sheet, 2 punch boards of trees and game counters, 9 small fold-up cardboard buildings, 6 medium fold-up cardboard buildings, 2 dice and a partridge and a pear tree. So we get pretty much everything there that I think you'd expect from a high-quality box set, which I'm sure it will be. So really looking forward to that. It says it's coming out 3rd quarter 2022, so that's... I mean, they've said fall 2022 on everything else. That kind of is in around fall. Is that going to be tied to the Kickstarter? Is that going to be available everywhere? These are the questions that I have. Like, how are they going to actually kind of go through this? You may have the answers. It might just be somewhere I haven't seen. Anyway, that's kind of the main news, but there are 2 other things that I wanted to discuss very quickly that's in this news set, and I've purposefully kept one. We've already covered the mercenaries, but there's a really, really important sentence in here that I wanted to keep separate, and that is this, that we are getting vehicles. The Galleon light tank, SRM, LRM carrier, Demolisher heavy tank, that's what they've announced. I don't know what else is coming. They've also announced some other mechs there as well, so the Firestarter, which I'm really glad about. We need Firestarters, they're good mechs, and they're really kind of important in BattleTech for like scouts and anti-infantry. Griffin 2C and the Ostrock. I think the Ost series might be getting made throughout this Kickstarter, which is great to see. Kraken as well. Don't know much about that, so not much to say. But ultimately, I really am so delighted that they are doing vehicles. I think that is super good for the community, because I think a lot of people want the plastic models of vehicles. I said this before recently, I actually love the old Ironwind and Relpartha metal models for vehicles. I think they look great, paint up really nicely, and I've got quite a few of them. So I'm not going to be going out of my way to get in the vehicle packs, but it's not about me, right? Like, it's about the other people who want to go and purchase this stuff. I know that that's going to be in demand, so I'm all in favour of them doing that. I think it's a wonderful inclusion. I'm so delighted that they're doing it. I don't know if they'll be able to go like full hog on it, because I think they'll probably have to go a little bit delicately with Ironwind, because Ironwind obviously still have the license, as do Relpartha. Now, I would imagine, because the Catalyst sculpts are just blowing the old metal sculpts out of the water, their demand and sales from the mechs, I think, will have gone down a lot on the metal models, but they'll still be selling a lot of vehicles. It all seems to me very friendly in BattleTech, so I don't think anyone at Catalyst is going to be trying to upset people at Ironwind and Relpartha, so maybe they're going to come up with some kind of agreement, because maybe, I don't know. I mean, who knows where that will go? But it's just important to say that, because we do have a mixed license here, and that can lead to a lot of complications. But that, to me, is one of the biggest takeaways actually from the announcement of this Mercenaries Kickstarter. Really good as well that they've included that within Mercenaries, because Mercenaries do use a lot of vehicles, so it really ties in together with the lore. Final thing is, I will give myself some credit. I've been predicting Mercenaries and vehicles for months. I think whenever this has been brought up, I've been like, yeah, wave 3, it's going to be Mercenaries and vehicles. So I'm happy about that. It turned out to be true. I don't think that was any massive surprise. I think that a lot of people thought that they'd do that, so I'm not taking any credit for it. I think it was quite obvious they'd do it as well, especially after the Wolf Dragoons box set came out. I think at that point it was just inevitable that they'd continue that line. That was like a taster. And finally, just one final thing. It'll only be another 2 or 3 minutes. It's very quick to talk about. They have announced another premium miniature, which is the Timberwolf TC variant. I really like these. They've done, I think, 3 of them thus far. They did the Black Knight first, which was the Clanbuster variant. I think then they did the Ryokan, the Clan mech from the Clan Invasion era. And they then recently did the Wolfhound 2C. Now we're getting the Timberwolf TC. This is for me, I really like this variant of the Timberwolf. I've actually got it on Flex here somewhere. Here we are. Just so you can have a quick look-see at that. It's a much more efficient mech than the Prime. Not in heat. It actually suffers quite a bit with heat, but so does the Prime. But it's got jump jets, and I do love a jump-capable mech. 2 Streak SRM6s instead of the LRM20 boxes. ER-S laser, 2 ER-M lasers, and 2 L pulses. So generates a lot of heat, and it's a real like close medium killer mech. He's a hunter killer mech. The Madcap Prime is much more of a, you can use it in any role. You can use it from long range with the 2 LRM packs. Or you can kind of go in close because it's got really good armor and very good weaponry. So this actually is one of my preferred variants of the Timberwolf. So I'm delighted they're doing this. I just hope I can get it, because as much as I want it, I won't be buying like a little baggie full of plastic parts and paying $120 for shipping. That's for sure. But I just hope by the time it gets released, there is some kind of thing available where they'll allow people in like Western Europe to get things cheaper. Fingers crossed one day they open up some kind of distribution centre here and tie it into the local game stores. That would be superb, but I think we're still a ways off that. Anyway, I think that's covered everything I wanted to discuss today. So, like I said, I didn't want to go through like a massive synopsis of everything. So I just don't feel like I'm able really or qualified to do that. So I've just picked out the things that I wanted to discuss, a couple of potential problems, but again, in the grand scheme of things, super minor, because what an age to be a BattleTech player, right? Like, we are getting so much cool stuff. I mean, as soon as this was announced over the weekend, and I was away on like a little holiday, but I was thinking, do I want to kind of get another storage case and like build some mercenary units, or use those mercenary units to build other forces? I know what I'm like. I mean, I'll inevitably end up going for like the $1,000 buy-in on this, no doubt, and getting far more than I should. But we'll see anyway. I'll see how they're going to package it up. But what I do know is that I will be getting it all. I'm absolutely, even though I don't play Alpha Strike, I absolutely want it. Mostly as well because, I do have this little YouTube channel, so I do like to get things just to keep up to date with what's going on. But I will be picking the things out of that I want, especially like, the 30 models that you get with it. But I think, generally speaking, it's going to be lost on me is that, because I'm not a big Alpha Strike player. But wonderful that they're doing it, because it will really like scratch an itch of a lot of players who are really into Alpha Strike. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. So again, it's this video is early. It will be back to normal service next week, so I will release the next video a week on Friday. So I believe that will be in and around May sometime. Anyway, yeah, I've lost what day it is. I've been all over recently, and I've got to go all over again sometime soon. So the next time you see me, I might be looking a little bit bags under the eyes and tired. But that's it for now. So I hope you enjoyed that, and like I say, I'll put links in the description down to Sleepless Ronin, because I think he gave a really good synopsis of all the data that was included in here. Anyway, I shall catch you all next time, hopefully, and I'll speak to you again soon.